Today I want to show you how to paint two different types of lavender with watercolor. There are over 40 variations of lavender, but I will be showing you how to paint the two most known types, which are English and French lavender. I'll be using my Winsor & Newton Cotman palette, but any type of watercolor is fine. The main colors I'll be using are Purple Lake mixed with a lot of water and a little bit of blue, and Sap Green, which I'm also going to add a little bit of blue to, just to kind of cool down. And I'm using watercolor paper, but you could probably get away with using mixed media paper if you have to. And finally, I'll be using this number 3 paintbrush for every step, and I'll show you how we can do that. First, we will be painting a type of French lavender. I'm not sure the exact name, but you can see it on my left. I'm going to start at the top of the flower, making those big purple petals that you see. And the way I'm doing that is by applying more pressure at the top of the petal for a wider stroke, and then slowly lifting my brush so that it tapers off to the thinner part of the petal. That's how we're able to paint these flowers with just one size of brush. After that, we'll pick up some green to do kind of this body area below those petals. They kind of look like scales. We're basically doing a shorter version of the same stroke that we did for the petals. And it's okay if they touch or overlap, just make sure that they have a little bit of space between them. Next, we'll pick up some purple to start on the stem. You can use green if you want to, but I like to mix them up. If you're making a thin line like this, you want to use no pressure at all. Now I'm mixing some green in with that purple, and we're just going to lightly brush the tip of the brush across the page. In a downward motion is usually best. And again, I'm using that same thick to thin method to make just a couple of little leaves at the base of that stem. Just repeat that stem and leaf cluster until it's as tall as you want. Just be sure to vary your leaves and stems slightly in size and angle so that it looks natural. Here I've just dried my brush on a cloth, and I'm going in to pick up some of this excess water that is kind of pooling and is going to take a little too long to dry and probably look kind of splotchy. After everything is dry, I'll go back in with the same colors but less watered down, and I'll add just a little bit of detail in the petals and leaves. And that's our first style of lavender done. It should probably be noted that this lavender isn't in season right now. It's midsummer, and this stuff is usually happiest in spring and fall. So that's why it looks slightly dead. For the second type of lavender, I'm going to add a bit more blue to my purple. Unfortunately, I don't have a clipping to paint from for this one, so I'll be using reference photos. This type of lavender grew outside my window at my old house, so it's the type of lavender I typically think of when I want to paint lavender. Again, you'll notice I'm starting at the top. I do this so I'm less likely to smear something by moving my hand across wet paint. For this one, we start with 1 or 2 little buds on the top, then a short stem, then a few more buds, then a stem, and so on. For this type of lavender, think smaller amounts of buds near the top and then bigger clusters as we move down. These buds will eventually open into tiny flowers, so sometimes I like to paint a few of those, and they're usually on the lower levels, at least when they first start blooming. Next we'll do the stem and leaves. The leaves for this type are a little bigger than the other kind, and they typically come to a point. And they'll be in clusters of 3 or 4 every couple inches down the stem. Remember to take your time and have fun. I'm just speeding this up because I'm impatient. Then, just like the first one, we'll go back in after it's dry to add a few details. Doing a few darker buds and some darker leaves using the same colors just without as much water. I feel like it helps the buds to stand out apart from each other instead of looking like a bunch of purple blobs. And now you know how to paint 2 different types of lavender. Comment and tell me which one is your favorite. If you try this tutorial, be sure to tag me if you post your painting so I can see how you did. You can find me at melart on most social media, that's M3L Art. Thumbs up if you learned something. Be sure to subscribe so I know to make more videos like this in the future. Thanks for watching. Bye!